Yeah.
There we go.
Now we got it.
Had to warm up there a little bit.
Okay, third time. We are calling this meeting to order. We're going to take roll call. Les Barber,
Yeah.
Will Rodovich,
Here.
Chris Moen,
Here.
John Sampen here, and Christine Tracy is en route. So we will continue. Approval of the minutes. Any changes or adjustments? I do want to say that Les does a terrific
Yeah.
job with the minutes, and we really, really are appreciative of that.
Thank you.
I forgot oftentimes half of what we did, so it's great to have those minutes in front of me. So we appreciate it. Thanks. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? I think we
I'll
need to do that.
make a motion to accept the August 26th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Second? I second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
No
Aye.
nays, so I think it passes, Les. We're good.
Oh, thank God.
Okay.
Dodged another one.
Yeah. The local designation discussion. So do we have an update on the county courthouse?
We have not heard back yet, so no update.
We're waiting for the mayor's, or who are we waiting?
We are waiting for the
Attorney?
county prosecutor's office to give opinion to the commissioners, which that in turn would give the mayor, obviously, I think, some guidance.
So
What's
this is not Mike Marsh. This is the
Correct.
the county. that
Correct,
is-
yes.
Okay. So we'll wait on that, I
That's-
guess.
That's all we can do at this
All
point.
right, thank you. That was short.
You're welcome.
BGSU, Les, do we have any update on that?
No, I don't know anything about it. Heather would be the.
Yeah, I
probably the only
think I
person.
forwarded you a email that the mayor was fine with the group proceeding,
He said
whichever
something.
two members would like to, and let him
Yeah.
know the date, and
Okay.
he can come, he will, and
Okay,
if not, he has his full
So-
confidence in the,
so we can proceed
commission.
with setting up
yes. Mhm.
a meeting. Will, I had sent you a note. I'm just thinking that I should be part of that as,
I can step.
are
Just
you
the two.
okay?
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I may need to bow out, so we'll please
If
stand
you
by.
can't go,
Okay.
it's Will,
Yeah, fine.
Will. That'd be great.
Let me know if I'm needed.
Perfect. So I will make contact with the president's office and make an appointment to talk with him. And we, Les, you had drafted, I think, the content of what that discussion might be.
Yeah,
Am I remembering this correctly?
yeah, kind of agenda. I think that was the latest thing I sent around.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I will locate that in my
Right.
many papers and we'll be sure to take that with us. The Boomtown donation, I made contact with Ellen Dalton as a result of our last meeting and instructed her to contact, let's see, what was her name? We'll tell you in a minute.
Dana.
Oh, Dana Pinker.
Dana,
yeah.
yes, to transact that transfer of funds. So I don't know where that's at right now, but I know that Ellen is taking care of it. She wrote me back and was very pleased to still give us the money. So we're pleased too. I think that's great. That was, I think, about $1,200, something like that. So at some point, we may want to consider how we want to use that money. But for the moment, we can just leave it in our treasury. Okay, so strategic planning for our,
Could I just ask whether there's any update on city buildings? Where we stand on the
as far as the police
local
department.
designation proposals? Any new information?
Not that I'm aware of.
Again, are we,
Um,
I did,
Did we issue an MOU for it? that we were waiting on comments or?
No, I think that the last I remember, I think, John, you talked to the mayor and about the 3 buildings, and
I can do that again.
he seemed to think that it was all a great idea. So I
Right.
think we're kind of waiting for the city to.
I'll make
Mm.
another contact with Mike and
Yeah. Okay.
remind him. I think I did. That it's been some time now, but
Yeah, that goes back
yeah.
a number of months. So.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's move forward. And I have a handout. Chris and I had coffee together the other day and discussed a few things, and I appreciate that, Chris. So I just kind of summarizing the activities that we have talked about in the past of where we might be going. I put this into, I'll wait till Heather gets a copy there.
Thank you.
Into 3 categories. One, I'm just calling it for want of a better name, honorary acknowledgement, buildings, BGSU, and the Wood County, actually, Wood County, but I should include in that the city buildings as well. So there should be a third category there. And then, of course, our historic overlay zones that we have talked about, and I want to talk about largely today, if we can kind of start zeroing in on some ideas. And then finally, possible individual listed buildings. And I do have some city buildings included in that 3rd category. And there are many other ones that we can add. This is not an exhaustive list here. So think about suggestions to put down there as we're talking today. But it's my feeling, and I want to get all of your input, that we need to move forward. I can see us just kind of talking about this for the next year and not actually accomplishing anything. And I'd like to suggest that we zero in on the historic overlay zones, perhaps starting with Boomtown, which would be probably the easiest to consider and expand or change. Then I know Wes has been voting for the Main Street, for the Courthouse Square. We might go to that second. And then I'm anticipating, and I think, Chris, you were agreeing with me that the Main Street downtown district may be the most difficult to push through. So we might want to just get some traction on other districts before we move forward. So any reactions?
So my general thought is John and I were chatting about those OHIs and all the information and, what it takes to kind of gather all of the information on the buildings. And the nice thing about Boomtown is we already have a lot of that cataloged through the registry, the National Registry. So in terms of, the upfront work, kind of gather that information, it's already been done. So it would be a good kind of starting point for, to get the ball rolling.
Is it possible to get copies of those inventories, like for the houses that were in Boomtown? Like if it's a sheet with their
So,
descriptions and materials?
The
and-
National Register it doesn't have every house that was listed. They highlighted, I think, 20 houses or something in the district, kind of the significant. And then it went through what.
In Boomtown, there are 20,
Boom-
20 distinctive houses that have been,
Yeah, I can't
Okay.
remember the exact
Okay.
amount, but so it didn't catalog every house that is there. They do the registry different now, but when they did it then, they didn't have to allocate every individual property. So there's kind of an overview of like the general theme of the houses in the district. The structures, I should say, some of them may not be residences.
Is that available on the national?
It is, and I
Site?
have a copy I can send to
I have a copy
everybody.
right here too, if you want to see it.
Yeah,
That'd be good, just kind of,
I'm sure I've emailed it to you all probably several
Yeah.
times.
yeah, we
Just so I know that it gets buried.
have the
Sorry, it's just one. if you wanna-
Boomtown and Main Street both have national registers. I think we're done in the 80s.
Yeah, I have downtown.
But because we're still working on our processes, I think the thought, and my thought was that, this kind of already gives us a leg up on what it might take to like get all this done. Because someone's already done some legwork. And then once we kind of get our feet wet and understand what our processes will look like, then we can expand from there.
I think we can simultaneously work on the BGSU and the city buildings, the
Mhm.
other individual listed buildings, but just kind of targeting as far as an overlay zone, Boomtown. It seems logical to me that that will be the easiest, and we kind of need to get our feet wet and figure out how to do this. Yeah, you agree? Wes, what's your feelings?
Yeah, I don't really have any argument against that approach, as long as we, at some point, I think, should talk about what the ideal set of districts would be from our perspective. There could be districts proposed by neighborhood groups anywhere in the city, and that would be fine.
Mhm.
And individual homes, we hope, maybe will be proposed by individual owners, and, individual members of the commission may be involved in helping push some of that. But at some point, it seems to me that it would be desirable if we had a kind of a official, clearly not at this point, we're just talking today about this kind of idea, but I think at some point we ought to have a notion of what the ideal set of districts would be for Bowling Green.
You mean a number, say 5 districts or 15
No, I
or
don't.
1?
It might just be one,
Yeah.
Right.
or it could be 5. It could be Boomtown, Main Street.
Mhm.
I mean, those two critically, no question about that. And possibly the courthouse. And then, my idea about North and South Main, which I know is problematic from a number of points of view. One of them is that there are a lot of houses that are not particularly interesting on
Mhm.
North and South Main, but those streets are undeniably the streets that are best known to residents and non-residents alike.
Right.
And if there's any chance in the long run that this historic preservation effort might mean some revitalization or at least stabilization
Mhm.
of those areas, I'm prepared to argue that that's a good approach, a good ideal approach to get to at some point.
Good.
But I don't have any problem with our saying that for right now, we need to do something immediate and practical, and if so, then Boomtown makes sense.
you could have a district, say like if we did a North Main, like Main Street, you could have a district that has boundaries, but maybe just one house or a few houses within it, Or
I don't know. Can we do it that way? I know when the Boomtown was set up, there could only be certain number of non-contributing buildings
it
within it.
seemed like, say like the house here that's listed even that's on North Main.
The
The
Stouffer
post office,
Walker.
the Stouffer, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
First post
that's
office.
one, how many other buildings like up Main Street or south on Main Street have history? In
So
other words,
Well,
you-
they-
the way our ordinance is written, then we need to have two adjacent properties. Is
to
that
be a
right? To
district.
be a
yeah.
district,
So then you'd go down to be possible individual building listed.
right?
And some of them may start that way. The individual buildings
Yeah,
until
I
there's.
think, however we draw there's Chris.
Hey,
Hello.
Christina.
I'm so sorry.
Hi, Christina.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
We're just starting to talk about districts. However, we would draw a district line, the lines, all of the properties within those lines would have to be part of the district. They'd either be non-contributing or contributing.
Right.
But
They would all be part
we
of
couldn't
it.
draw a district this big and say, well, but the
There's
only,
only one house.
yeah.
Just this,
yeah, I
all
don't think we
North
could do
Main and
that.
have the Stouffer house. That's it.
I don't know if we have anything written that says a certain percentage needs to be contributing, but
We don't.
I can't imagine we would want a district that was mainly non-contributing. I mean, that doesn't,
One of the
help
issues
the
we
preservation
need to
side.
talk about, I think, is, just take North Main Street. There are a lot of very uninteresting looking houses there. I don't know that doesn't mean that they don't necessarily fit a definition of historic.
right.
They
So,
may
and
or may not.
I mean, I just would like to note that this is, we're talking about preserving history, which doesn't necessarily mean architecturally amazing buildings, right? I mean, I'm working on a national nomination for a warehouse, nothing special in terms of the structure, but it's the history that went into it that's important. And I think, we have plenty of houses I think would fall into a category of being important to the history of Bowling Green without being architecturally.
Right. And our definitions give us enough leeway so that
Yeah.
we can include such.
Do me a favor, Les, talk in your microphone because I don't think they can hear you. I have to get very close, as you can tell. So I make sure if you're recording it that we have
Yeah.
voice.
Didn't even think about that.
That's okay. I just want to make sure.
Do we have guests in the,
No, we don't share this link. It's just on YouTube Live.
okay, okay,
We're testing.
right. Now, if, for example, the stone house that's out east of town, we would not be considering that as a district, but we might consider it as an individual historic property, right? And we can do that.
If there's others close and got added as individual, could that become a district then?
I presume.
So, I
If
mean,
there were at least two.
So in other words,
I
you
think,
start
yeah.
out, some things, a lot of things may fit under the individual listed buildings.
Right.
Like the Stouffer house. And then we discover if there's anything else in that
Mhm.
street close or whatever.
So we're zeroing in or trying to on our first strategy for perhaps forming a overlay zone of buildings. And it seems logical and the most, well, I hate to say easy, but nothing's going to be easy for going with the Boomtown area. And if we agree on that, then we need to decide if we want any expansion or if it should be a smaller portion of what's now designated Boomtown. And I don't know how we would go about making that decision. There are significant buildings, I think, that are missing in the Boomtown area that we could consider.
The Carter House.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the specific lines of Boomtown?
Here is, Heather has a small map over there. And this is the Boomtown area here. Take a look at that.
You have multiple copies?
I do. If people want them, I
I
can.
would like one, yeah.
Oh, I'd like
Yeah.
one.
Maybe. Just would love to see one too, maybe.
Yeah, I would like to get one too.
This is Main Street. Mixed up.
Main Street.
So they're not all the same.
Oh, that's great.
Boomtown Main Street. I'll get Main Street for you, John. That can be,
Okay.
they've got. Okay. Okay, here's
Sure.
another-
I'll take
Yeah,
a blue
yeah,
check.
yeah, I
I've
saw
got
that.
Boomtown Main
I have
Street.
one of each, yeah. I've got, there's actually two here, Lou.
Yeah, one's Boomtown, one's Main Street.
Unless there's another Main Street.
Extra.
Oh. It is like Chris, this is fantastic.
So who else?
Who needs?
Thanks. Oh, this is Boomtown. Is this, the
yellow
outline is the
outline.
Boomtown? Ah,
I
okay.
had a smaller version of this, and my wife and I tried to drive around. We had more trouble figuring out where we
The actual
were.
boundary.
Yeah, this is,
So this was a boundary established by, in the National Register.
Right, yes,
Okay.
we just took that and
For both. for
drew them
both,
in.
And for Main Street also.
Yes,
Super. Thanks, Heather.
you're welcome.
That's very helpful.
There's an extra set we can take on the way out. Somebody wants it.
This is helpful.
okay. Yep.
This is nice though.
Oh, yeah, you can see. It's got the parcel number.
Now I
Was this a digital photograph?
This is the GIS map. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we go about this? All right, Chris, maybe you got, or Christine, you have some ideas?
I didn't think of, I didn't really think about this till, we were just talking about, there's 13 properties list, with description in the Boomtown nomination.
Mhm.
But there's just last. I want to say they said like 134 contributing structures. So 136 contributing buildings and 24 non-contributing buildings. Now this was done in 84. So some of those non-contributing buildings could have been left out just purely because of age. So that's something we could reconsider, is looking at what was non-contributing in this and maybe that's something we do want to include in our, so it would be included in our overlay, but we still have contributing and non-contributing. We might want to switch those to contributing if we're looking at.
So we need to identify exactly what those buildings are in order to consider that, and perhaps ask the owners for an inventory of some sort. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's where we have to take a look at what information we really want to get. And I don't know if we want to be burdensome to the owners too much in terms of providing information. Other than, hopefully they're in support of it and they can give, if they have information, great, but do we want to, and I think this is to Les's point, what we really have to figure out what our process, how much information we really want, how we're going to go about getting it.
I did attempt to inventory my property, and I needed help. Chris helped me a little bit on that, but the form is a little bit difficult to work with because it didn't always include information that categories that I wanted to use. But it also is time consuming, and to try to search back to past owners and find historical information. It's going to be an ongoing process just for me. So I'm sure that most owners are going to have the same problem. If we want to invite them, we can invite them to give us information, but
Sure,
maybe not
yeah.
require it.
I think, Chris, wasn't your point that if we pursued Boomtown, we really wouldn't have to do inventories because it's already been done? I mean, maybe they need updating, but
Right.
perhaps that could happen almost as a second step rather than an initial step. Question, I guess.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. I think when we submit an overlay to city council, we have to at least give them what's contributing and non-contributing.
Yeah,
So from that perspective, we at least have to, look at each
reconsider
building
that. Yeah, okay.
and make sure that, I mean, hopefully we haven't lost any of the structures that are listed there, but there might be some in here, in the 136 that we don't have anymore too. So that's all I mean by, we'd have to go through there and really make sure those numbers match what we want.
So just a thought to go around with this is that I think it's a perfect opportunity to have an educational seminar about how to research your own home. That way you're not just looking at a potential district, you're also trying to work with homeowners that may be interested in knowing the history and don't know where to start.
And perhaps we should start with our own committee as far as inventorying before we pretend to be experts on the community. But I think that's a very good idea.
This is really interesting. When we looked at this, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't remember that the Raider estate was included, but it is, huh?
Hmm.
And it looks like the old infirmary building is not included.
I guess
I
not.
just assumed that it went right down
Yeah.
Worcester Street on both sides, but apparently it doesn't. It jogs over and excludes that now, I guess, Mauer owned building,
Right.
as well as some others.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the old county home, the old children's home would be a great one to include. I'm not sure why it was. I mean, other than the era, I think it was built in 1908. So maybe
I don't know.
maybe it just fell out of their timeline they wanted. But
If we wanted to know, someone like Joyce Kepke could probably tell us in a flash.
I know it's in this book. I saw it. Right here, Wood County Juvenile Detention Home. Opened in 1916.
1960.
Yeah, so
Even older.
it would certainly qualify.
And in the Boomtown, they only went to 1910.
Oh.
So it
Is
was
that
probably,
right?
Oh, is that
yeah,
right?
Probably
Ah.
just the date they had a cutoff date and it didn't fit.
Aha, I did not know that.
Thank you for that information. Can we still call it Boomtown if we go to 1916? I mean, I don't know how we got that name to start with.
So the National Register, they kind of, they want a theme, a thread that kind of connects everything. So they were probably just looking at what happened during the oil boom. I don't think we necessarily have to be tied to that
Right.
idea. We could just call it the Boomtown area and it couldn't.
That would do it.
Or even choose a different name entirely if we wanted
Right.
to. I
Yeah,
think we're free to do that,
yeah,
to
exactly.
propose that.
The only thing is that we've kind of gotten used to using that term.
Yeah,
At
there's
least
no
I
reason,
have.
no reason not to, and
Yeah.
but I would personally have no problem expanding its scope under the same name, because our interest is different than the National Register.
Right.
Right. Okay, let's call it Boomtown area, as Chris suggested for the moment anyway, unless we find a different name.
Okay, so if we're going to we're going to re-examine the contributing versus non-contributing issue, then the map alone doesn't get us very far. We need the actual list of properties, right, that we can examine one by one. And
Which I think we'll need an inventory of the properties anyway for our. Right,
Right,
so, I mean,
right.
But I'm going back, looking at our ordinance and,
Yeah.
you know, trying to figure out the connection between establishing districts and it seems like, because we have to have like written surveys and that, it seems like the yellow line boundary could be the final like goal. And you have the houses are already listed in the register, and you look at those as ones to try to propose doing according to the ordinance, where you have as a group want to be in a district, but it's not the whole big one. It may be like, it may be a subset. When you do a group of houses, because you got to get like what the majority have to want to be in the district right now.
oh, when you say survey, you're meaning the property owners survey.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, because you've got all these, you say 100 and some properties within that yellow, the boundary.
Mhm.
So do we have to include all of those in the vote?
Well, there won't be a vote. Remember
Well-
that got changed by council, so
Right.
there won't be a vote, but still, we're gonna have to provide the information. So many approve, so many don't approve. I mean, we can't avoid that, I think, but
But it seemed
it's
like
not a
if-
vote anymore.
it seemed like it'd be overwhelming to try to do the whole boundary, all 100 and something properties versus maybe a subset to start with.
The
Subset could be all the ones that are already in the registry.
Well, presumably,
that is
everything
within
inside
the-
this boundary is in the National Register,
Within the
as a
yellow.
as a district,
but
not-
individual properties also within the district.
all those are all individual properties are listed.
Well, I don't know.
They're,
Chris, you know
well,
more
so
than I
they're
do.
not, the registry highlights 13 properties, but they all encompass in the district. They're not, so they don't describe in detail every property, but they're just, but there's, like they said, they have 136 of the structures are
any-
contributing.
So any of those 100, and how many, just 113?
136 are
136. So
contributing.
any one of those 136 could say they're part of they're registered and it's a registered, national registered house.
Yeah, they're on a national registry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
but-
don't need to necessarily make it smaller. or
Okay,
smaller.
yeah.
Right.
Since if they're all listed as historic
Yes.
registered.
But it sounds like what we do need to do is look at certainly the non-contributing and assess whether they remain that way or not. And the contributing ones, see if that they're all still there and
Right.
I guess we're not assessing whether they're in good shape or not. It's just that they still
Hmm.
exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could look at. Maybe that's, maybe we do want to give a grade in our inventory. Maybe we don't. I think the auditor's site does that, so we may not even need to.
And what do you mean? Who would be the auditor? We hire a person?
Oh, I mean, the Wood County auditor, I think,
Oh, I see.
gives a grade
Oh,
to
okay.
properties, but
So that is done?
I think so. I could be wrong. I know they do in other counties. I haven't looked at Wood County lately, but
So I wonder if we can ask to have access to that.
yeah, it's all on the
Is it-
Wood County auditor's website.
So it's public information.
Yep.
Created by the auditor. Okay.
But I guess I'm trying to think about when someone comes to us for a COA because they want to replace the soffits on their roof. And they want to put up, a vinyl soffit. So they apply for a COA. How much information do we want on that exact property to be able to tell them, yes, it meets historic standard, or no, it doesn't? I think that's where we need to think about how much information we want. It's more of what we're going to, how we're going to use that to apply our ordinance.
Is that information that we can get later when they apply for a COA, or do we need it up front? I mean, that's going to be a lot of detail.
Right.
Yeah, well, Chris is asking, do we need to do it
Right.
up front in order to facilitate the COA process?
Is that your question? Oh,
That's
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying. Do we?
But I would
do we need
argue,
to-
at least preliminarily at this point, that we probably don't really want to do that in
Yeah.
great detail because of the way we tried to orient this ordinance.
Okay.
We tried to orient it in the direction of preserving what is there with flexibility, all of the words we used. So I think maybe we shouldn't
Mhm.
try to be very specific about things like
Every
soffits
detail.
and
I think having some piece of paper within, I put my house photograph in the back. I mean, I think that's nice to have that for us, just help us recognize what we're talking about. And, we can ask homeowners to fill in what they can, and then otherwise don't worry about it. Give us their address, contact information, right? I mean, it would be nice to have that. I asked Chris what kind of house I have, and she labeled it folk Victorian. I like that.
which
Folk
Victorian.
Victorian. Yeah. That's fine with me. But we would, we will get that question. What is the, what design? What
What's
is the dynasty
style?
of
Yeah.
their home? And then I would think a lot of people would like to know that. So maybe, Will and Chris can help us.
I tried to fill that out on our house, and I couldn't get past all the question boxes and stuff.
It
I mean,
didn't,
it
it didn't
didn't-
work very well.
Well, I've got two kinds of roofing,
Oh.
and it wouldn't let me enter both. It
Thank you,
just,
Heather. That's
you had
great.
a drop down menu to select one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we do
See.
develop
That's
the
aggravating.
inventory,
Thank you, Heather.
that
We
needs to be
develop our
more,
own.
needs to be more thorough,
Yeah.
our own, yeah. Thank you, Heather.
All right, so let's see what we got here. This is the document that highlights those 13 properties, is that right?
This is the National Register nomination for Boomtown.
Okay. Great. I'm looking forward to reading this. It'll be fun. And it has a map. Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay. So where are we?
So if we don't want that much, not every nitty gritty detail, we probably still want a general description of the outside of the house. How many stories, general like floor plan layout. Is it rectangular or is it odd shape? The existing materials that, wood siding or vinyl siding or brick, those sorts of things.
Mhm.
And then I do think photos would help a lot
Yeah.
in terms of our,
Now, this is the Ohio Preservation Office form.
yes, the Ohio
And
Historic Inventory.
do we need to ultimately send them this inventory?
I don't think we're required to. If we fill it out with meeting all of their requirements, they probably would love to have them as, part of their archives, but
what I'm wondering is, could we design our own inventory form
Mhm.
that would be user friendly? And
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions we asked Nathan, and he thought that might be a good starting point.
Yeah.
The OHIs because it does have a kind of a, an outline of the information we might want.
you mean this is a good starting point?
Yeah.
But then if we could just do one that maybe doesn't have drop down menus that don't necessarily fit our
Yeah, and some of that information in there. Sure, we would love to know. I mean, I would love to know the history of the building, who lived there and why they built it. But I'm not sure that's something that we need to know as a commission in order to look at the COAs.
We're looking more at the surface of the building.
Right.
Mhm.
I think the date that it was built is important, and
Yes.
I find that.
if we can document that.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and I think to Heather's point, I think that would be a great, like having that house history workshop would be a great place to start. I know I sent you all a packet, but it actually, being able to see the processes firsthand is helpful.
So who might do that workshop for us? Are you qualified?
Well, so that packet I sent out is from Preserve Toledo. That is a nonprofit that I am on the board for.
That was this one.
Yes. And we used to do in-person workshops. That our last one was February of last year. We haven't done an in-person workshop, which is why that guide was created. But our goal at one point was to try and come down to PG and do one for Wood County as well. Because that is geared toward the Lucas County resources, but Wood County has just as many great resources. Wood County Library, I mean.
So that,
John, could I ask, what did you actually do? Because I haven't been able to make a start on this at all. So did you go to the courthouse and?
no, I didn't.
No.
I didn't go that far.
Oh, okay.
I have some data in my house. When we were being considered for part of the registry, I know Mickey Cochran developed a lot of information and they shared that with us. So,
Okay.
That's got to be my next step, is get to the courthouse. So perhaps you will be doing a workshop in early winter or February.
Well, as of right now, Preserve Toledo is not doing in-person workshops. But I can approach the rest of the members and see if they'd be interested in maybe a Zoom type of workshop. Like I said, and maybe it's just because I'm a visual person, but I find actually seeing the process happen really, as opposed to just a piece of.
Yeah, I agree. And you're imagining this for our commission or for the community, if this would
Both.
happen
Yeah, I think it would be great to do it for both.
at the same time.
Yeah, I don't see why not, right?
Mm.
I think it'd be a great thing to show the community, that's one of our objectives, is to provide educational experience.
So if we would advertise to the Boomtown residents that we are hoping to move forward, or at least not inventory, but we would like this to happen, and we would like them all to be participants. I mean, actually, they won't have a say, right? The city council will be making that decision, but we want the majority to have support of what we're doing, and then we can invite them to participate in a workshop that would involve the inventory process.
Yeah.
Am I
I
saying
mean,
that right?
yeah.
Okay.
I think I mean, and I don't even know if we want to limit it, especially if it's Zoom or, WebEx or whatever. We could just kind of I think letting certain individuals know our intent is nice, but I think we could open it up to the whole community. I mean, there's.
Okay.
And just
Yeah.
whoever wants to attend, and
Yeah.
then we can ask them to share their, let us know what you found. We're excited to hear about it. And then just get them excited about the history of their house. Hopefully we'll help them feel excited about all PG history.
And to me, it's a big picture item that the whole community could really be sparked
Yeah.
an interest in history. Reading the book I've been reading,
Mhm.
to me, it's been very educational and I've enjoyed it. And so all ages could enjoy, learning about properties in Bowling Green and not just their own home. So you could have it when things feel a little safer in the courthouse. We've had open houses in the courthouse and it worked out really, really well in an actual historic building where there's some space to spread out. So because there's a rich history there, and I'm just saying you could make it more, I guess the word is fun. I'm looking for, make it a fun activity for several people that want to learn more about history and how to research a building, even if they don't own a building that's historic.
Yeah, I mean, some people might want to just come and research, I don't know, the police station building. They could look at what that has, or
I mean,
Their
City Park,
favorite
that's a
downtown
historical
or-
place. I
yeah,
mean, there's just a lot
exactly.
of history where you could have, there's a lot of possibilities, I guess, is my point.
yeah.
Well, my hope is that after Christmas, we'll be not wearing masks. Do you think there's a chance of that? Nobody knows, of course, but in which case, something like an open house or some kind of a meeting in the courthouse would be much more feasible. So would we prefer not to move forward with ideas about Boomtown before we would do these training sessions? Which
I
puts us
think if we're
back.
going to concentrate on Boomtown, we should try to get started. But
Yeah.
it's so overwhelming. It's
I
hard to
know.
I
say
know.
what do we do first?
I know.
But for example, I'm just looking at this list of historic properties, which apparently are the 136,
Oh, in the National Register.
but they can't be because they include 5 or 6 BGSU buildings and the Educational Memorabilia Center. I mean, what the hell are they doing in there? Sorry,
Chancel Hall. Yeah,
Oh,
you're right.
they don't have anything to do with Boomtown.
Them in there as a
Yeah.
additional, just in case that. Right.
It's, maybe, I mean,
Is there do you, or does the commission have to focus on only one area? I mean, for folks to submit, we're relying on people to come to the commission to submit there, right? So I guess, is it crazy to think why wouldn't we include Boomtown and Maine? Or is that too much, or
The
what?
only thing was I was a little anxious about whether Main Street would be ready for this kind of designation. And if we were to put forth Boomtown first and be successful in making a big deal about that, it might encourage the owners downtown. Now, you can tell us better than I if that would be the case.
Well, I guess I think it's a mix of readiness, I'll call it. And I think that some buildings and some owners would greatly embrace that. I think that the whole goal of this is to make it flexible and to make it user friendly, right? And so if there are specific ways to carve out commercial properties from residential properties, or right, certain ways to maybe identify, I don't know, elements of, preservation, right, that are specific to commercial. So maybe on the commercial side, much less, right? So few things that we as a commission notice that could be helpful to downtown, so that maybe some of the owners do feel more ready in the overlay. You know what I'm saying? So if you place the overlay over, and you just say, okay, well, these are the specific things, awning. Okay. Like, what if you just said, here's the overlay for Main Street, and we're going to start with one, designated awnings, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, can you carve out specifics that would maybe make it feel not so overwhelming for the commercial owner?
Well, the way we've drawn up the whatever we call it, the proposal, and that's been accepted, that wouldn't be possible, I don't think.
Oh, our ordinance.
Our ordinance, thank you.
Well, I think to build on that, what you're trying to say is that when we've talked about downtown over the past several months, it's been, I think, the need that there has to be incentives. And so I think a bit of this is some partnerships with the Chamber and Economic Development and Downtown BG to talk about what those incentives are and really have a piece that shows that, because there are several incentives. Let's be honest. I've sat
Right.
through so many webinars. My head spins with how many grants, all kinds of things that exist out there. It's just, you have to show people the way sometimes. And I don't think we've done that yet. So I think there's a lot of work to do with downtown. But again, many downtown revitalization projects have hinged on that gap funding, the grant. I mean, so I think it's a bigger conversation. Unfortunately, residential owners, we know, don't really have those same financial incentives, except we're hoping they maintain their property, which in turn keeps their property values up or increases them, right? So, yeah. So again, I just think there's so much out there. At some point, we need to work with other partners to develop a piece of paper, a website. I mean, just showing those incentives and how does that work? I mean, it's overwhelming. I read it and I think, oh, that's a lot of work so you have to really help them through it. I think kind of give them the whole package.
And I think that's why it was nice how you phrased it, like they're not ready yet. Because really, I think anyone who understands the economic benefits of a commercial rehab in a historic building would be ready. But if people don't know what's out there for them to use.
And there's a lot of new tools.
Right.
That are amazing. I just read it and go, wow, transformational mixed use is a new incentive in Ohio that I think can really entice people to remodel maybe the upper floors of the apartments. And we're talking huge tax credits on those. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I just popped in my head that there really is a lot out there.
I agree with all of that, but I did want to add to, in response to Chris's point, John's comment is sort of reflecting things that we gathered from two previous representatives of downtown, both of whom, or two of whom, I guess there were three altogether, two of whom kind of suggested that there's a lot of opposition and lethargy and blah 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 blah. But on the other hand, and maybe we've talked about this, but not specifically before, if we did a single joint district, then we'd have a larger pool of people.
That's true.
And maybe more positive on the Boomtown side than the Main Street side, but the cumulative might be more.
Absolutely.
A more positive impression to city council about acting rather than trying to do them separately.
Yeah.
A lot of the houses and buildings were built at the same times.
Right.
Yeah, no, they're definitely.
So they're,
When their boundaries, the
and their
National Register boundaries,
overlap, that's-
abut each other.
I guess I would hate to see, I understand the point of trying to focus on only the one area, but I also, don't don't want to out simply because there's a couple folks who are in opposition or we don't feel are ready. Maybe there's a way to help support and educate folks with, some tools, maybe on the website, easy click link to and having like an informational site. You know what I mean? Something that
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there that
Well, we definitely want Main Street as
yeah.
part of the some overlay district, if not a large one.
Yeah.
So it's not being discounted in any way. There's just my feeling, and I can be convinced of other ways, was that we should try to push something forward reasonably soon and not sit on this for a year and talk about it and, maybe have a workshop in March and we're all of a sudden in summer and nothing's happened. So I would like to see it happen a little bit quicker than that. But maybe it's not possible. I mean, we got a lot of work to do.
I guess I'd like to express the view that in a general way, it would be smarter to put the two together. They already exist as National Register things. They're of equal importance, at least. Arguably, Main Street is even more central to the identity of the city as a whole. Maybe for terms of how we present what we want to do to the public, putting the two together. I guess I believe that makes more sense than singling out either one of the two at this point. I know it makes it more complicated, but it's complicated enough even if we do Boomtown alone. And
What if it was just called the Bowling Green Historic District?
for now, yeah.
Right.
I like the idea of something that can eventually, be remolded, the boundary if we keep it as Bowling
What if-
Green Historic District, and then
Have subsets.
we
You have a
reach
subset.
out and it grabs parts
Yep.
of the east side as
Exactly.
well. Then
You have the subset, like the Boomtown subset.
Yep.
right.
I love
Yeah, and my pet ideas about the courthouse area and North and South Main Street are clear extensions. I mean, they could simply be expansions of a Bowling Green Historic District. They would not have to be separate districts. They could be additions to at some.
Buildings or landmarks within it, or
I don't know. That's
So are you saying, Les, that not only should we do Main Street and Boomtown, but we should do Courthouse Square as part of this whole?
I'm saying I think those could wait.
Okay,
But I'm saying simply terms of title. I mean, I think we were temporarily on title. If we had a title like a general title, Bowling Green Historic District, we could add those things if we wanted to at some point in the future to that historic district because they're contiguous. They're connected.
Okay.
So small point. It's not a- But I think we seem generally, my sense is that the consensus of the group is that it makes sense at this point to try to concentrate on the things that already exist and try to develop a procedure for moving forward with that. And now we're right back where we started. What's the next step?
Sorry
Well,
if I
what are we
complicated
doing?
everything.
Where we kind of go back and forth every time we
Yeah,
talk about
well,
it.
I'm fine with doing that. We just have to figure out a strategy for advertising, letting people know. I mean, I'm assuming there'll be a article in the paper, which will present that, but we probably need to do a lot more than just have an article up here.
So did we kind of decided these Ohio inventory forms are maybe a little too much for
they were for
what we
me.
need?
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to draft up what maybe our inventory sheet.
I was hoping you would
require.
say that. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then I think one of the things we will want to start talking about, and maybe this doesn't even necessarily have to pertain to inventory, but if we find that we need help with inventory, the CLG grant is due in February, and that might be a good use of that funding. If we find we want to inventory the courthouse square area or North and South Main or areas that haven't had as much attention.
I think that'd be great. And what kind of funding would that, what kind of dollars are we talking about? And what kind of-
I don't remember what the CLG grant is.
Is that something you're planning to apply for, Chris? For the, what is the
I
grant?
think,
do?
I mean, I think we should apply. Well, it does have a match. I think it's a 60-40.
Oh.
I'm trying to remember what Nathan told us. Let me see if I can pull it up. I mean, the grant can be used for a lot of things, but I would assume that in the application, they want to know what we're going to use the money for.
Well, we've got $1,000. We can, is that enough to match? Probably
But
not,
you
right?
could use in kind too, though, if I recall, right?
Oh,
Mm.
it's. The minimum grant request requirement is 5,000.
And what we'd be looking for is
And it
some,
is a 60-40.
a person to come and assist or actually do the inventory. Is that correct?
Right. That was my thought, was if we found this to be, we want to get those inventoried, but it's a whole lot more than what we want to put on the property owners or ourselves. We could use that grant funding for that.
Great. Okay, let's keep that on the, in the minutes, of course, and maybe on our next meeting for more discussion. I'm just watching the clock here. We want to be done by 5:30. So any immediate suggestions on how to proceed? What could we do? What little things could we do? Drive around the perimeter and just eyeball the different buildings?
Seems like you just got a good start right here.
Read
Just
the document.
Maybe in this picking out, you say there's 13, something like 13 of the 136 that are
That they've provided,
more significant or?
right, that they kind of highlighted as being, key features to the
It
the
might be
district.
to look at those 13 first. About them being in the historic district.
Start with the
Well,
13 buildings.
those are sort of givens though, aren't they, Will?
Yeah.
I mean, if those folks thought they were the cream of the crop, then we can almost take them at their word about those. can't
Yeah,
we?
we could, I mean, if we were doing like an inventory, then we already have some
Say those
Some-
are done.
Right.
some information. It'll be interesting to know the transition goes into ours. In other words, this is the National Register, but it'd be interesting to create our own inventory on those 13. Like with the template that Chris say would have come up with.
We may want to wait till she actually creates the template though.
But I'm thinking those 13, they already exist, so we already have some information on them. It'd be good. So we don't have to go out and do a lot of survey.
Yeah.
We started to try to get those 13 into the district first, say,
Oh, I see.
and work on the other 123.
Okay, why don't we do
Yeah.
this?
Thinking now that we need help and that maybe what we should, we have to try to do all of these things. There's so much, but maybe what we need to do is plan for, in the near future, open meetings of Main Street property owners and business people and Boomtown residents, property owners, saying quite frankly that we've had the kind of discussion we had today and we reached consensus, which I don't know, have we? That this is what we want to concentrate for now on trying to create
Putting them together.
district that includes these
Yep.
two
Yep.
groups from the National Register, and try to arrange to have some of the kind of information about money to help with the downtown folks. And with the Boomtown folks, it's more a matter maybe of just knowing how many people are willing to come out and listen and talk. And then we have a larger group of people. Maybe in that group, we'll find people who will help us do some of the hard work of inventorying, et cetera. I don't know. Am I making any sense? I'm just trying to think, what could we do in the relatively near future to get something in
Some
motion?
support.
So-
Inventories are tough because, are the five of us going to do all of this inventorying?
Well, we're not,
Right.
No,
That's
I
gonna be
think
my
it's-
question.
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
yeah.
And you
But-
have all of the inventory. Going to say,
We have to at least know if the building is contributing or non-contributing.
okay.
So when we present to council the boundary and we'll say, these few buildings are non, here's why, either they're too new or too altered, something like that. I think that's all we need to create the actual boundary. But in order to determine if it's contributing, we'll need to know, the age of the building.
Don't
then
we know
generally-
that already through this document?
Just for those 13.
This is only dealing with, not with the other, doesn't list the non-contributing.
So
Um,
in that document, they only described 13 of the 136 contributing
Right.
properties.
Yeah.
I mean,
we
But-
have
but
to
that-
do that. But we don't have to do a vote.
We'll fill out
Yeah.
their
We don't have to have originally it said we had to have a majority
analysis.
vote of the property owners. It no longer
Yeah.
says that, but we have to do the survey.
Make
Yes. No question
inventory
about it.
But that would be not part
process
of the,
starts
say,
at that
public
point, so
meeting
that
with the
particular
people.
property.
I would,
Separate.
I would argue it's too soon to do that. We don't want to.
The COA is when they want to do any
How much
alteration.
interest there is. How
So
many
they
people,
would have
how
to
many people
already
from
be part
Boomtown
of a
would come to a
district in
meeting?
order to.
how many property
require
owners
us.
from
So why
Main Street would come to a?
I think they come, but what I fear is they're
I
going to
thi- we
come and they
can,
say, well, why
yeah.
are you
We can come up with.
going to
any
be a
boundary we want.
policeman for my
We
property?
just have
You
to
know, and
tell
you're not giving me
council
anything back. That's
buildings
what
are
I'm worried
contributing
about.
aren't.
So I'm going
My
to be
only
ready
point
for
with the
that.
National Register was
We can't even tell them they can get a
that-
grant
that are listed
for a residential home.
on
So what,
the arranged boundary.
we really have to have a
So
good
the
argument for homeowners. For business, it's going to be a little bit easier
Whoever's,
because they can get some funding.
if we're the ones.
I actually would be a little
guess
nervous
maybe we can find that
going in front of
say
a
something
50 homeowners who
100,
are
whatever, whatever.
thinking we're gonna
Is-
stop them from painting the house a color that we don't like.
Why?
Yeah, well,
Of course, we're-
that one's easy.
They're
because-
already-
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
won't do that, but that's going to be the kind of fear that I
What is the
anticipate.
value of the-
Our bound will provide, have our word, the boundary will say anything within this boundary has to.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's, thank you. Okay, I'm there now.
Okay, so let's, I guess we should just table this for the moment and brainstorm individually. And if Chris, if it's possible to create that form.
Yep.
For the next meeting.
Yeah.
Then we can all start working with that. And maybe we can share that with a few supporting people that we know are going to support us, including some of the downtown people, and see what kind of information we get. That can at least be a starting point.
And to Heather's point about the incentives, I think formulating a list of incentives, mainly for the, commercial properties. I think having that kind of at least in the back of our minds, so when people are going to start asking, well, why should I want to be a part of it? Then we have a list.
We were just talking about the residential, the same problem, except we don't have any incentives.
So property value,
Oh,
property
well,
value.
Well, right.
Yeah. I can, and I started to kind of outline some of this even when we were addressing city council about the ordinance. So, I mean, at a minimum, I can kind of bullet point residential and commercial incentives to historic preservation in general.
Yeah, no, and I know there are some,
Yeah.
but I just, I'm
There's
fearful.
less economic
Yeah.
in the residential world, but
Right.
there's still plenty. And actually in the commercial realm, the historic tax credits can even be used on residential properties with 2 or more units. So I think that's a great incentive for a lot of our properties in Fiji.
Okay, we're going to, I have to cover a couple other quick pieces of business before we need to adjourn. Les, we never did, and I don't know if we need to, vote on your clarification and guidelines document. The landscaping guidelines that you put forth. Do we need to have a vote on that?
Probably. Remember at the last meeting, the majority of you said, let's not ask city council to amend the ordinance. Let's accomplish the same clarification internally. So this is
No, and I think
one
it's
proposed way of doing that.
I think it's a great way to handle that, and not anticipate a lot of arguments back and forth with city council. As I've read it, I think it's very clear. I like what you've said. So I, for one, would be in favor of adopting that, which would go into a set of other guidelines that we might
Right.
add along the lines as we proceed.
I made 2 very modest additions just today that if you want to just add them, that under the second category on page 1, definitions, probably should say additional definitions, because we have a whole set in the ordinance.
Right.
And the other one on page 2, that headline that says general guidelines for owners considering preservation, I think we need to add or restoration, because it's not just preservation, it's restoration
Okay.
too.
That's good.
But otherwise, I think I reread it again today. I thought it still seems to
I think it's very good.
accomplish what the things we know right now that we would like to sort of solidify. But I think that we do need to adopt this officially if we want to do it.
Okay.
Heather, do you have it from an administration point of view? I mean, I
Makes
think
sense.
This is,
I'll just need an updated copy for the minutes when you're done.
yeah,
Any other discussion?
So this guideline document will be something living as we create our overlays and have more guides. We'll include that
this is just the
and
start.
something we
This
can
is the
keep on
things
our
we know of right now.
website,
Right.
We could keep this some form of this on our website
Mhm.
in PDF probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be a way of publicizing it.
Yeah.
And so I think we'd have to recognize that if a member or members of council say they want to amend the ordinance, then that's what they'll do and what we'll have to help them with. But perhaps they'll be satisfied that this
Yeah.
does the kind of clarification that they sought, and rightly so. I mean, it needed these clarifications on the landscaping issue.
I think it's good. Further discussion? Can we have a motion? I would move to accept this guidelines as put forth by Les Barber with those modest modifications. Do we have a second?
I'll
Sec- Go ahead.
second.
Great.
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's passed. One other, and this sort of came up when we were talking about involving community help. I was thinking it might be valuable for us to form an advisory committee of people from the community to not have a voting right, but to help us and perhaps have another architect. I don't know. We already have a good architect on our commission. We have two, right? But maybe a historian. Maybe we'd want to consider somebody that like the Wood County Museum director, just people that have a real commitment to historic preservation. So I don't think we need to discuss that any further, except just kind of think about it, see if it's a good idea. For 5 people to take on this job is huge, and I wouldn't mind having some extra help. Okay, next meeting, according to my calendar, would be October 26th. Does that look correct? Well,
Yes. The 4th Tuesday of the month.
4th Tuesday, 4 o'clock.
So I may have to zoom in. That's something you can set up, Heather. I'll let you know if I am going there for sure. I'm
Okay.
not definite plans yet. But
Everybody okay with that date?
Or 20.
October 26th, Tuesday, the 26th at 4 o'clock. Great. Any other final business?
I can give a little update on the fund.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
please do.
I sent a copy of the deed of the gift that I drafted up to the Greater Toledo Community Foundation after I met with Mayor Osbacher. And I did get a copy back that they said they had to change some of the verbiage to update it. So instead of a deed of gift, now it's called a fund agreement. But it pretty much stayed the same. And so I sent a copy of the revised one to the mayor, and I need Heather to find out maybe what the status is to see if he had sent it on to Michael Marsh to get it reviewed. And then I met with the Director of Parks and Recs, Kristen Otley, on last Tuesday, and we discussed their Parks and Recs Foundation, and within it they have an endowment. They actually have an advisory board of trustees for their foundation because it is a substantial amount of money. Like Simpson Garden, all the funding for that, and they meet once a month. But when I talked to Kristen, it's like our fund start out so small. In other words, we would not need a separate board, or we can pretty much decide ourselves without a separate board. But in talking, suggested developing guidelines, in other words, for how the fund would be used in the application process. So I'm waiting for her. She's going to send me guidelines of the application process for Visit BG. They have guidelines, and I thought I could look at it to see how to start with it as a kind of a base. And it's from the Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So that's kind of where it's at.
No,
Kind of keep pushing on it.
job.
and-
Now, we don't actually have any money yet, right?
No, and that's, again, that's part of it. When I sent it up to Toledo, the draft came back and it has the mayor's name on it as the donor. So I'm going to find out if
Well, we want to hold him to
if
that.
he's the donor. But it's like $10,000. So
They didn't
I've
like
got to
that.
work with him. So I haven't heard back, whether he sees the signature. I originally, when I sent it up as a copy, like I sent you all, it just says donor. But whenever when I was discussing with the foundation up there, I told him that the mayor had to approve things and whatever. So somehow he took it that the mayor be signing it. So that may need to be edited.
Right.
Good. Good job.
So
Thanks. Okay. Any other final business? We are going to make it by 5:30. Heather, we're in good shape, I think. Anybody want to suggest that we adjourn?
Could I just ask first, what do you want the minutes to reflect about what we decided, if anything, today about the historic districts? Or should I just say that we have discussed all of these various things without any
I think
particular conclusion?
I think we have a conclusion. I think we can, I mean, I will change my opinion and agree that we would be supporting the BG Historic District, which would include Boomtown and Main Street, as a entire overlay district.
As our first concentrated effort
Right.
of
And we'll be
implementation.
moving forward, hopefully with future meetings, nothing immediate with the community. And we're, as a committee, starting to look at those zones, and I'm just talking.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop
So
talking.
Seeing
at the
other
next-
nods as if people agree. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yes.
Do we have a goal of when we want to like officially set that boundary?
I would love to have a goal.
Okay.
What do you think? Can we do it by
mean,
January? Sooner?
I mean, I think if we're starting with the existing National Register boundaries and then we're just kind of massaging here
Right.
and there,
Right.
getting into contributing, non-contributing is step 2. I think we want to create our boundary first.
Create the boundary and then investigate
Right.
individual properties.
I mean, at least it gives us, it might shift as we find, we might draw this boundary and find out, okay, there's a whole bunch non-contributing here, let's go around it. But at least it gives us a point to say, here's what we're looking at. And maybe we just stick with what's already on the register, but we were discussing like the old children's home that's not included in Boomtown. And
maybe like a separate
That
landmark,
should
a
be-
third, other category.
yeah, so
Okay.
I was just wondering if that's something we wanted to really actually draw out at the next.
I think that would be terrific. Do you think we can do it? Yes.
To me, is it already drawn out,
It's a-
the National Register boundaries, the yellow?
Yep, the yellow boundaries. And then I was just suggesting maybe at next meeting, we each come and say, hey, I think we need to include this or exclude this in the
Yeah.
boundary.
Which means we all need to do a little homework and drive around.
Yeah.
If we see buildings that perhaps should be included. The thing is, we don't know just by having an address and a nice looking building,
Right.
but I guess we could start there anyway. and-
Right.
Okay,
So the 136 buildings within the Boomtown, is that
And-
each of the properties?
yeah, right.
My survey's done.
You're all set? All right, good job.
I mean, that might be the approach, and that may be the part where you do the written part of the ordinance, where you have to do the written survey, and that may get sent to all those.
So as far as setting a date of being done with this, I don't know. Give me a
Yeah,
date.
I don't know
I
if we'd
don't
be,
know.
I don't think being done with it by next meeting, but I think saying, okay, here's the boundary we're gonna start looking at
Okay,
by next
not
meeting.
necessarily voting on it for sure, but just
Right.
having something to
And so that
As
would
an
also
agreement.
include Maintown, Main
Main
Street.
Main Street, yeah.
I
Right.
think that there are
So two.
additions there.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right, do I have a motion for adjourning? Adjournment,
So moved.
okay, second,
Second.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Thank you, we are adjourned.